Hey everybody, and happy Faith Friday. I'm coming to you today with a little bit of a word about battling anxiety, our enemies, and impacts of worldly things. So, worldly things include the impacts of a pandemic, violence, injustice, hatred, and other categories of things that people are dealing with right now because of those worldly things include social isolation, anxiety, fear of contagion, uncertainty, chronic stress, and economic difficulty. If you're out there listening to this and you're feeling some of those things, this word is going to be hopefully a blessing on your life today. As I was reviewing the word, these specific things came to mind because of what's going on right now, in our own personal lives and in our communities. And so as I started looking up some impacts of that, I noticed that there's an increase in stress-related disorders. Various studies that I've been looking at and reading said there's an increase in psychiatric disorders. Suicide rates are up, domestic violence rates are increased, and we just have an overall stressed community. So today, I really wanted to focus on a word that's going to help us battle that anxiety, help us fight against the enemy, and help us to recognize worldly things that we need to shed from our lives as much as we can. Okay? So I'm going to start this out with a story, a personal story, about my brother and I. So my brother is 4 years older than me, and he is afraid of dark places, and he was in college and had a caving class or some sort of class related to geological studies. I'm not really sure, but he's part of some caving class, which surprised me anyway because he's really not the outdoorsy type. So he asked me if I wanted to go caving. Well, I am the outdoorsy type, so I'm like, well, yeah, that sounds great. And so I told him, I was like, well, ask the instructor how difficult this cave is, because I had at the time just broke my collarbone mountain biking, and I didn't even have this screws and plates all up in here yet. I just had a bone fragment, two bones that were kind of like this at a point pushing up against my skin, so it was like red, and the bone was right here, and I had a sling on my arm, and then I had a figure 8 brace that basically held my shoulder in place. So I told him, I said, just ask your instructor how difficult that cave will be. And so he called me and said, he says it's pretty basic, should be good to go. So for me, thinking spelunking, I've been in places where you need to have rope, where you need to pull yourself, where you need to have full gear. And so I just show up regular clothes, have a little headlamp, and I think I'm good to go. Well, we get into this cave. Of course, they had the helmet, we had our lights and water, and then, went into this cave. Well, I quickly realized that this was not some easy cave, okay? As my brother is having to do like this under my high knee and push me up one-handed to get up over these ledges to be able to then army crawl through these small gaps between, top of cave and bottom of cave, and to pull and get myself through. Well, when you have a bone shard sticking out and you got the use of one arm, that is really hard. But my brother was so not going to be in that cave without me that he insisted, to help. So he pushed me along, and then as we got through that small gap and he's kind of stuck because he's bigger than me, it was then that I had to encourage him, you better come on, because you got me in this cave in the first place. We were both at the point of starting to become fearful. I mean, he was already afraid because he's in the dark, right? And I'm about to kill him because I'm in there with a broke arm trying to do some hard caving. And anyway, so we were both starting to think, like, okay, is there end in sight? Where's the light at the end of this tunnel, this cave? We were fearful of the unknown. You know, I'm with this, you know, my brother, not nature savvy, who doesn't know how far we have left to go, where the end is. He's freaking out because he can't fit through the tight space. We were just a hot mess. I'm wondering, does anybody hear us? You know, if we're stuck in here, is anybody going to see us, hear us? You know, yes, we were with a group of other students, but they were not right on us. So we still had times where we were separated. Well, finally, we get to this edge where I have to climb down what I just climbed up, and I get down and I'm standing like waist deep in water. Okay, y'all, you in a dark cave in a waist deep water, you know, body of water. You don't know what's in there. I don't know what's going to get me. So I don't know who went faster at the end portion of that cave, me or my brother, because all of a sudden when stuff started splashing, I couldn't tell if that's his feet, my feet, or something trying to get us. So we got out of that cave right quick. That experience just reminded me with our doubts of, you know, is there light at the end of this cave? Like, who hears me right now if we holler? Like, who's coming to our aid? And, you know, we definitely were afraid of the unknown. You know, and I think that a lot of people that I've talked to and what I see around me are the same things. So when I was looking in my word, preparing for today, the story of David came, you know, to mind. And I was reading Psalm 142 for encouragement. And I was reading that, I was thinking about, where was David at when he wrote that psalm? Well, he was in a cave, y'all. David was at a very low point, and he had been previously living, you know, in the house of a king. And at this time, when he was in the cave, he was fleeing because King Saul wanted him dead. And King Saul's son, who was Jonathan, was basically David's best friend. So here you've got your best friend's daddy who wants you dead. So on top of him being wanted and killed, he's also now isolated and separated by his best friend by the hatred of someone else. Okay? And I see that in our community now, is that there's hatred, there's division, there's separation of friendships that have been there a long time, of connections, of people groups. And unity is where God wants us to be. So going back to David, so David went running off, and he was like, I'm going to go to this cave where I can, you know, flee and be safe. Well, when he got there, there were several people gathered there, okay? And these were people in distress already. These were people who were in debt or discontented. So, you know, think about David. He's not doing too well, y'all. Okay, he, you know, his best friend separated from him. His best friend's daddy wants him dead, King Saul. He runs to this cave thinking he's going to get away from stuff. And then he shows up and there's a bunch of disgruntled, discontented folks who are in debt and in distress. Like, that's one of those days where you're like, can this day get any worse? How many of y'all ever had that type of day? Okay. On that note, you don't want to stay in a place where you are surrounded by those type of people, because we know that your mind, your body, your spirit can be impacted by that. So beware of who you are keeping company with during this time, and what you surround yourself with, because what your mind and body and who you are surrounded with can have a deep impact on your mood, on your life in general, and over your thinking and your spirit. And so just beware of who you are keeping company with and what you're surrounding yourself by. Well, David comes to that place and he's like, okay, you know, this has got to be the worst. So in this cave, around these folks, at a low spot in his life, David wrote Psalm 142, and I'm going to read that to you right now. So that says, I cry aloud to the Lord. I lift up my voice to the Lord for mercy. I pour out before him my complaint. Before him I tell my trouble. When my spirit grows faint within me, it is you who watch over my way. In the path where I walk, people have hidden a snare for me. Look and see, there is no one at my right hand. Look and see, no one is concerned for me. I have no refuge. No one cares for my life. I cry to you, Lord. I say you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Listen to my cry, for I am in desperate need. Rescue me from those who pursue me, for they are too strong for me. Set me free from my prison, that I may praise your name. Then the righteous will gather about me because of your goodness to me. And that is so relevant to what he was going through at that time. It also says, as he continued, Lord, hear my prayer. Listen to my cry for mercy. In your faithfulness and righteousness, come to my relief. Do not bring your servant into judgment, for no one living is righteous before you. The enemy pursues me. He crushes me to the ground. He makes me dwell in the darkness like those long dead. So my spirit grows faint within me. My heart within me is dismayed. I don't know how many of y'all are living in darkness right now. I don't know how many of y'all feel like you're deep in some dark cave and like the enemy is crushing you. But let's listen and hear how David continued to cry out to God. I remember the days of long ago. I meditate on all your works and consider what your hands have done. I spread out my hands to you. I thirst for you like a parched land. Answer me quickly, Lord. My spirit fails. Do not hide your face from me, or I will be like those who go down to the pit. Let the morning bring me word of your unfailing love, for I have put my trust in you. Show me the way I should go, for to you I entrust my life. Rescue me from my enemies, Lord, for I hide myself in you. Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. May your good spirit lead me on level ground. For your name's sake, Lord, preserve my life. In your righteousness, bring me out of trouble. In your unfailing love, silence my enemies. Destroy all my foes, for I am your servant. That is so good. That is so powerful. Y'all, when I was planning for this word, I said, Lord, help me figure out what will help the people. And he brought me to these Psalms. And then looking at the story of where David wrote this, y'all, he was in this cave with a bunch of hopeless people. These people were without, any idea of how they were going to be moving forward in their next steps of life. And as I think about that story, I think on where David went afterward. David continued from that cave, and he had many threats on his life. He went running place to place, fearing death. He had no friends. He had no home. He had no safety. And he, was just with a bunch of folks without hope when he wrote this psalm in that cave, So I feel like that's what's going on around a lot of us right now, is that we're limited in our relationships and friendships. We are uncertain about our safety and our way of life at home. And so to think David was in that place and he wrote those psalms to God, they're just encouraging. So in Acts 5:38 and Acts 5:39, it says, leave these men alone and let them go. If they are planning and doing these things merely on their own, it will fail. But if it is from God, you will not be able to overthrow them. You might even find yourselves fighting against God. And what does that mean? That means that you can sometimes find yourself in a struggle, battling against your own self instead of relinquishing control, giving faith, and seeking God wholly, with your whole self. And And so instead of struggling with yourself and battling yourself and the enemies that try to come and defeat your mind and your body and spirit, like we just talked about earlier, those enemies are social isolation, they're anxiety, they are fear, they are discontentment, enemies are stress, enemies are hate, enemies are destructive behaviors. And so instead of struggling with those things and struggling with yourself about how you're going to figure it out in your own will, I'm encouraging you today to seek God for those things. The enemy says you don't need others. The enemy wants to isolate you. The enemy says you don't need any help. You can do it yourself. And so he doesn't want you to have a community, a network of believers or people who are good around you. So again, I just champion you to look at what's being put into your mind, look at what you are hearing, look at what you're surrounding yourselves with, and be sure that that is from the Lord and that it is not from the enemy. So we can recognize, these are your takeaways today, during this time, to recognize that our enemies are too strong for us. That's what David did. He recognized his situation was so dire. He didn't have any answers. He didn't have anywhere he could go. He was kind of in the bottom in this cave. And he said, I know that my enemies are too strong for me, but I can cry out to God. So this is why we need God to deliver us from our enemies. 2, focus on what you can do. Focus on what God can do and not what you can do in your own strength. That's super important. And then pour out your heart in prayer to God who hears you. In that cave with my brother, I pray to God and I know he hears me. He, no matter if you have the faintest voice and you don't know if he's hearing you and you can only mumble or mutter a simple prayer, God help me. Lord help me right now. That's all it takes, y'all. Go and declare. Pour out your heart. Pour your complaints out to God because he is listening. So if no one else is listening to you, you feel unheard, you feel unsupported, you feel isolated, you feel anxious, cry out to God. He hears you. He hears you. So as we go today, I'm going to speak life over you. And so I'm going to call you listeners today, okay? But put your name in the blank, okay? Listeners, there is a time for you to endure pain, knowing there is joy on the other side. A time for pressing on to get through the pain or enter into that joy. But there's also a time when you're supposed to be delivered by your Father, the Most High God, when you cry out to him and ask him to lift you out of their clutches and to set you in a beautiful, safe space. And I bless you with knowing the difference between the two. I bless you, listeners, with the same security that David had to walk into the enemy's camp, to leave with Saul's spear and a water bottle. I bless you with experiencing your Father's intervention so often and on such a profound level that you are emotionally secure. I bless you with seeing him do remarkable things to rescue you, so that you can go before God's people and you can share glory stories of what God did on your behalf and how he activated events to rescue you. How he rescued you from the trap of the enemy who was designed to destroy you. I bless you, listener, with shouts of joy over the intervening hand of God as he rescues you from the work of his enemies and yours. And I bless you with the security and joy of being rescued by the God whom you serve with all of your heart. And I bless you in the name of Jesus. In your name I pray. Amen. And again, if you are not aware of who this Jesus guy is or who God is, or if you're in help in need of rescuing and you don't know how to get there, I'm here to share with you that it is yours to have, that the free gift of salvation, which is a close relationship and connection with God, is yours to have. And reach out to me if you need to know more about that. Comment below if you have something that you've been battling that you have given to God in your life and a testimony to share of his goodness that worked and helped you through that. If you are going through something right now, you feel isolated and you just need prayer, you just need covered, you just need heard, you comment below too. But in this time, I bless you. I hope that your day and your weekend is filled with joy amidst all the craziness in this world. And just know that God hears you, that you are important, that you were made with a purpose. And I just know that there's someone on here, some listener on here who needs to hear that you're connected, that you are part of something bigger than yourself. And I'm here to share that with you. So have a great weekend. Follow me on Glory Be That's Me, and I look forward to talking to y'all soon. Have a great day.